How's it going, everyone? It's me, Lone, back again with another Fallout 76 video, and today we're going to be talking about Flux. So Flux is fairly important in Fallout 76. It's used for a range of purposes, including crafting camp objects, crafting ultrasight ammo for prime weapons, crafting mutation serums, and the last one, and I think this is probably the most important nowadays, is the fact that Flux is used a lot in trading. If you go to any trading forum, Market 76 on Reddit, any of the multiple Facebook pages that I'm actually a part of, there's so many offers for weapons that go up, and a lot of the times people are accepting Flux. And the amounts of Flux that people are accepting for these really rare and really good legendary weapons and armor are constantly increasing. Like, we're talking not even just like, 10 of each Flux. It's getting to 50 to 100, 150, 200 pieces of each types of Flux. This is what these rare weapons, armor, and even some items are going for nowadays. So the reason why I want to make this video is to, one, highlight that, but also two, help you start to farm Flux properly in Fallout 76. We're going to be going through where you should nuke, how you should be doing it, everything that you can possibly think of when it comes to Flux. So if you enjoy this video, if it helps you, please let me know in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new, but with all that out of the way, let's get to the guide. Alrighty, so we're in the game now, and we're going to start this video by doing a top-down summary of what Flux is very quickly, and then we'll talk about the actual farming and the methods of farming in the game. So Flux comes in different forms. When you first harvest it from mutated flora, it is in a raw, unstabilized state, essentially, and those come in the form of raw cobalt, raw crimson, raw fluorescent, raw violet, and then raw yellow cake Flux. Some are more widely available than others, depending on the area of the map, but those are the type of Flux that you can get in the game. As I mentioned, when you first harvest it, it comes in a raw form, and it actually decays over time. So if you don't stabilize it in time, it will turn into an inert Flux. And the way that you stabilize it is by going to a chemistry station. But you need more than just those raw materials of Flux. You actually need some other ingredients, which namely are looted from creatures that you kill and loot from in a nuke zone. So those materials include glowing mass, hardened mass, and high radiation fluids. So those are the three things that you need to harvest in addition to the raw types of Flux that you want to get in the game. And I would say that those are probably the harder thing to get, because you have to find the enemies. There's only a certain amount that spawn. You have to keep coming back, but I'm going to teach you a little bit of a trick to get around that. But generally, getting those additional materials are a bit harder. I think that's why nowadays you're starting to see people sell glowing mass, hardened mass, and high radiation fluids in their vendors, so you're able to stock up on them in case you do want to farm a bunch of Flux and stabilize it in a bit of a bigger quantity. So those are the main kind of components of Flux. And then let's talk about the primary methods of actually farming Flux in the game. So really there are two methods. Number one is doing Scorched Earth or the Scorched Beast Queen event. So whether you want to spawn it yourself or just join in when someone else does it, anytime you participate in Scorched Earth and you get a required amount of damage onto the Scorched Beast Queen, cannot remember what that amount is. It used to be 1,000, I think, but if you do a decent amount of damage on the Queen, you're going to participate successfully and you're going to get rewards from that event. And frequently, those rewards include a wide range of stabilized Flux. You can get all kinds of Flux through that method, and in fact, that's the way that I predominantly have been keeping up on my storage of Flux in the game. And then I just store it in my scrap box, and then I'm all set to go. But of course, that's a bit of a slower method, because you can only launch 3 nukes at a time before you go to another server, and then and then if you're launching the nukes, you actually have a cooldown timer, so you have to rely on other people to do it, and then you're only getting a handful of each type of Flux sometimes, and sometimes you might get, just one type or just 2 types and not the one that you want. So it's not as reliable, but it's a nice thing to do every now and again, so I thought I'd mention it. But the second method is just regular old farming, and that's what we're going to be covering in this video. So I'm in a private server right now, and I'm about to launch a nuke. This is of course required anytime that you want to farm Flux in the game. And that's why I'm starting off with a nuke, because we need to talk about locations. Where should you be nuking in the game to get as much Flux as possible? So we're going to go to the system armed targeting computer here. So we got a bunch of locations here. Now it's a bit harder to tell what the locations are when you look at it in this view, but we're going to do this anyways, just because when you're launching the nuke, this is the screen that you're going to see, right? So the best locations, first and foremost though, I'm going to link in the description below a map which shows you all of the types of mutated flora that you can get in the game when there is a nuke zone. Super, super useful, especially if you're targeting specific types of flora or flux. You want to look at that map and just nuke wherever you can see a bunch of the material that you need, right? But if you're just looking for all types of flux, or if you're looking for good areas to get a lot of enemies, because as I mentioned, you need a decent amount of enemies to get all the other materials to craft flux, then listen to the locations that I'm about to list now. But again, if you want to look at that map, it's in the description below. So some of the great locations, and I'm going to start off with this one here, Palace of the Winding Path. So this is actually a really good location because it has so many different types of flux. I think it actually has every type of flux in decent quantities too. So if you ever need to get a bunch of flux of all varieties, of all kinds, nuke the Palace of the Winding Path and you're good to go. The one issue that I have with this location is that enemies sometimes just don't spawn. The most recent time that I nuked the Palace of the Winding Path, I got like 1 or 2 enemies. I did it with a friend of mine. We couldn't find any others. So you might find this location a bit harder to get those enemies for the other materials. Again, I have a trick for you later on to try and get away from that, but you're still going to need some level of enemies in the game to be able to get those materials. So the next one, see if I can find it here. Harper's Ferry, I can. I'm trying to avoid the camera on the screen. Harper's Ferry. The reason why I like Harper's Ferry is because, again, it has a nice variety of all kinds of flux, and it's a decent spawn rate for enemies. So this is a location in the game, you know, just generally, if you ever want to go and get and kill super mutants and ghouls and scorched, ton of enemies spawn here, and I think that's why when it's nuked, it has a decent spawn rate with enemies as well. So I am actually going to nuke Harper's Ferry in this video, just so you know, but I think it's a decent location. Probably not like the most well-known or the most used for farming flux and for nuking, but I still think it's fairly good. The next one, if I can find it here, is of course White Springs. So White Springs is probably the top nuked area in the game, if you will, for farming flux. It started off that way and it probably still is today. I think next to maybe Fisher Prime, for instance. But the White Springs is a great location to be able to farm flux. The reason why I think is because there's so many enemies that spawn here that it's a great location to get the other kinds of materials and to farm them, like glowing mass, hardened mass, and radiation fluids. The kind of downside with White Springs is that it doesn't really have violet flux if you're looking for that, but it's very good for crimson, yellow cake, and fluorescent. Sorry, a tongue twister. So it's a decent selection of flux, not the best, but if you're looking for those specific types of flux or flora, then it's a good location for you to go to. But again, you could just nuke this location to get all the other components if you want, and then nuke a different location to get the flora or the flux that you need, such as violet, if you're looking for that in particular. But what I will say is that you could probably nuke locations to get both of them. I think there's a good balance that can be reached, and again, I think Harper's Ferry, especially with the method that I'm about to show you later on in this video, I think that's a great location. But the next one, and I think it's an obvious one, the actual location is here. So Fisher Site Prime. The benefit of doing Fisher Site Prime, particularly in a public server, is that one, you spawn the Scorch Beast Queen, right? So you do the Scorch Beast Queen, you get some flux from the event itself, you have people helping out with you if you're not on a public server, obviously, because you're public. Not on a private server, I should say. You get people helping out, killing the queen, you do it faster, you get the rewards, and then you have a nuke that lasts for, depending on how much you've done, how long you spent in the Scorch Beast Queen event, you have up to 2 hours to be able to farm flux in this general vicinity, and you get a good amount of flux here as well. Decent enemy spawn rate because of the location. It's especially good for violet and crimson flux, so if you are lacking violet flux from White Springs, Fisher Prime is a good location to kind of substitute that. And as I mentioned, it's a great enemy spawn rate. So Fisher Prime is always going to be Fisher Site Prime is the full name, is always going to be a good location to nuke. And then the next one is a location that I actually have never done, but apparently it's very, very, very good. So it's Morgantown specifically. God damn it, I forgot where Morgantown is. It's the highest, there it is, Morgantown. Like, there's the airport and the station, and Morgantown's there. So Morgantown, apparently it's a really good location as well. It has a decent selection of flux, maybe not as good as the others, so it's especially good for cobalt if you're looking for that kind of flux, but it has a great enemy spawn rate, I am told. So I thought I'd mention Morgantown here. So any one of those locations, I think are a good place to nuke to be able to get flux. Again, look at the map that I mentioned in the description below if you're really trying to target down on certain types of flux, because when you look at that map, you can see how varied the types of flux are depending on where you are in the map. And of course, keep in mind with that map as well, you can't nuke the green zone. So even though it shows the type of flux I believe in that map, you're not going to be able to nuke this zone anyway, so don't bother. Alrighty, so let's do a nuke, right? We're going to do a nuke, and I'm going to actually show you the method of farming flux when you're in a nuke zone. So as I mentioned, we're going to do Harper's Ferry. I'm just going to do it right on it. I know that there are some cabins, I believe. You know what? Let's make sure we get the cabin. Yeah, so apparently getting these cabins in the nuke zone is a good option for Harper's Ferry, because the main area for Harper's Ferry is just like this little zone here where, you know, the burrows are. So just make sure you include that and include the cabins if you want. But we're going to do this location, see how it goes, and then I'm going to show you the proper method, or a great method I should say, of farming flux. So let's do it. Alrighty, so we're in the Harper's Ferry nuke zone, and let's start off by saying, if you're in a nuke zone, of course, you need to have a power armor or something like the Chinese stealth armor, because it's a nuke zone. You're going to get highly irradiated, and you're going to take a hit to your rads. If you don't have one of these, you're going to be using a lot of radexes and radaways, unless, of course, you have the legendary perk card What Rads, especially if it's ranked up. That becomes really useful in nuke zones. But if that's not you, have a power armor, some are more effective than others, or have the Chinese stealth armor with 1,000 rad resist. You get this by completing the Wastelanders storyline at some point. I can't remember when it is, but you should be doing Wastelanders anyways. So when you're in a nuke zone, let's talk about actually harvesting the flora. So first and foremost, make sure that you have Green Thumb activated. And some people might be asking, well, there's so much flora when it comes to a nuke zone that you're actually going to have way more flora compared to the other materials, so why do I need Green Thumb to give me double the yield? Well, first and foremost, there's not really a downside aside from a hit to your carry weight, right? Having more flora is always better. Even if you don't use it, you just throw away the bits that you don't need that eventually decay into inert flux, right? But second as well, if you're in a nuke zone that doesn't have as much of a certain type of flux that you need, then having Green Thumb gives you double the yield, so you're getting more of that flora, so you can actually potentially craft flux for it. So it's a no-brainer. Make sure you have Green Thumb. Gives you double the yield when you're harvesting. I think is a really useful perk card to have. And speaking of harvesting, this is what a mutated flora or plant looks like. They come in different varieties depending on the actual type of colored flux you're talking about. This one is for crimson. Most of them give off this kind of glow, like you can pick them out in a distance. You can see some violet flux over there. I believe there's I don't think that's yellow cake actually. That's just a yellow plant that looks like yellow cake, but it's not yellow cake. But yellow cake also usually gives off the yellow glow. But all you want to do is go up to it, harvest it, and look, 2 raw crimson flux, which is what I need for crimson flux, of course. I already harvested that one there before. But you just go around. This one over here is violet flux. So I'll pick that up, double the yield. And this is why I say Harper's Ferry is very good, because I'll show you where I am on the map. Right here specifically. I am about to die. Let's give myself a rat away. As I mentioned, this is not yellow cake, so I always get confused. It happens all the time. There's violet. I believe there is some yellow cake around here somewhere. Here we go. Geiger Blossom. This gives you yellow cake flux. And this, another one, can't pronounce it. Fluorescent flux. That's also a type of yellow. Kind of confusing, but honestly, you just eventually you figure out which flora is which, and you're going to harvest it all anyways. Again, that is not yellow cake. Down by the water here, you can find different types of flux as well. I believe there is more crimson and possibly some cobalt here. Glowing fungus, so fluorescent if you need fluorescent. Bloom, some more crimson. There's more violet over here. So this is essentially the idea, is just to get as many of these as possible. Now, mind you, when you're collecting this type of flora, it does depend, it does matter, you know, the order that you're collecting it in terms of the other materials, because this flora actually does decay. Eventually it will become inert flux and you can't use it, you need to throw it away. So what you don't want to do is collect all this flora too early and allow enough time to pass for it to decay, and then you just can't use it, right? Some might suggest you should be looking for the other materials first and then come back for the flora. In my opinion, just time it right. It doesn't decay that quickly, to be honest. So I'm comfortable getting a bunch of these now and then finding the enemies that I need. But it is true that you shouldn't be collecting too much of it too quickly. I'm just showing you for the purposes of the video, but just make sure. So I want to keep getting some of these. I was hoping that there was some cobalt here. I thought there was cobalt. I might find some eventually. But as you can see, Harper's Ferry, that's nothing. I don't know why. Everything that's glowing, I'm like, yeah, it's flux. No, there isn't a green flux, Johnny. But that's the idea, right? I want to stop now because I can't find any more here. Maybe because, am I still in the nuke zone? No, I'm not in a nuke zone anymore. That's why I'm not finding flux. That obviously, it matters. It matters being in the actual fucking nuke zone, you idiot. Anyways, let's talk about the next topic. Alrighty, so the next topic is finding all the other materials for flux, like glowing mass, hardened mass, and high radiation fluids. So as I mentioned before, the way that you get these is by killing enemies inside of a nuke zone. So make sure you're in the nuke zone, not like I was just before, but when you find an enemy, you kill it and you harvest those materials. They don't always drop all of them at once. You might get lucky, you might get very unlucky, depending on who you're killing and just random number generation and all that, but eventually you will get all the materials that you need. Now, the traditional method of doing this is simply by going through, killing enemies, getting the materials, and maybe leaving the nuke zone, coming back and waiting for new spawns, right? What I'm going to teach you is a method that we adopted, if you remember, in the, what was his name? Earl. The bloody Earl event. I can't remember what the name of it is now. What is it? Colossal Problem. Colossal Problem. When we did the speed run of killing Earl Williams in Colossal Problem, we adopted a method using the Marksman Syringer. So this Marksman Syringer, I will show you, has a bloatfly lava syringe barrel equipped. And what this does is when you kill an enemy, it gives you a chance to spawn a bloatfly. And the reason why we did it in that speedrun is because you could get more kills to pump up your adrenaline per card. The reason why we want to use this now is when you kill an enemy after you've used the Marksman Syringer with the bloatfly mod, and you kill it, you have a chance of spawning that bloatfly, which also drops more glowing mass, hardened mass, or high radiation fluids. This is a tactic that Tonic, the YouTuber, also mentioned in a video of his, so I'll link his in the description below just in case you want to check it out. But we're both using the exact same method here, and it's based on the same logic. Try and spawn as many enemies as possible using this weapon and using this mod. The way that you get this mod from memory is just by scrapping a bunch of syringes. It's a pretty low chance, so you might have to scrap a bunch. But if I'm wrong on that, correct me in the comments below, but I'm fairly sure it's learnt by scrapping. But eventually, you get it, and then you start to use it in a nuke zone. So let me show you how it's actually done, right? So I'm actually going to sneak because I don't want to get caught. But as you can see, there's a Scorched Conqueror and a Scorched Conqueror there. But what I'm going to do, first and foremost, is shoot it, that one at least, and then, you know what, we're going to, oh, that one's spawned anyways. There we go, we'll shoot both of them. So hopefully these guys, I'm going to go through the door here. Maybe there's I'll just pull it out just in case. I think this guy looks different. All right. So I've shot this guy. I'm going to kill it. And then as you can see, it spawns a glowing... Oh, that other Scorch killed it. What an asshole. What an asshole. Let's try and prove my point. All right, shoot it again. All right, kill it. And then it spawns a bloatfly, high radiation fluids. So then the idea is when that bloatfly spawns, all right, you shoot it again with the Marksman Syringer, kill it, and then it spawns another bloatfly, and the bloatfly that just died drops high radiation fluids, glowing mass, and hardened mass. And you just repeat the process as much as possible until you get the amount of materials that you need. Now remember, it's only a chance that the bloatfly actually spawns when you kill someone after using the Marksman Syringer with the mod. It's not going to happen all the time. So the reason why I don't like going to areas such as the Palace of the Winding Path is because if you have a very, very low enemy spawn rate and it doesn't spawn, the bloatfly doesn't spawn, then you're going to be stuck, and then you have to wait for the enemies to spawn again. But it's a pretty strong chance. Like, usually the bloatfly spawns. Okay, so doesn't have any for me, unfortunately. Why did I get out of sneak? Whatever. Let's kill this guy. Another one spawned. High radiation fluids, very nice. Kill this guy. Did I shoot it? I think I shot it. And another one that spawned, so you keep looting. That was the one, right? I think that was the other one. Whatever, it still spawned. Sometimes with Bloody Mess, the bloatflies are hard to find, but... So as you can see right there, didn't spawn, and I definitely hit it, right? So you want to make sure that there are other enemies you can rely upon. So there is another Scorch back here. And the idea is you repeat the process. Yes, some would argue that going to a place like White Springs just has such high enemy spawn rates that you don't need to do this. Or it makes it an even better area to do this. But either way, I think this is a great place to do it. Especially because if you're trying to find a specific type of flora and there isn't the highest enemy spawn rate in the world, then you can use this method to try and get more bloatflies to get more of the materials that you need. So there's another Scorch Conqueror. I'll make sure that I shoot it. I'll just shoot it a second time, because why not? Oh, did it miss? No, it didn't. It didn't. I hope it didn't, because I'm going to kill it. Yeah, got it. All right, so that one didn't drop anything. And as you can see, it doesn't always drop the materials that you need. So you need to make sure that you're doing something like this method, right? All right, so I just hit it. I don't need to be sneak anymore, because they can literally see me. Not spawning. Let's try again. Go on, keep shooting me. I don't care. All right, come on now. Spawn. Nah. So sometimes the drop rates aren't that good. But eventually, I'm not going to stop this video until I can find one with the materials that I need. High radiation fluids. Woo! I don't think we've seen glow and mass or hardened mass yet. Maybe this guy will give me one. Yes! Haha, hardened mass. See? You can drop them all. Where did that asshole go? There you go. And go back. So you get the point. All right. I want to stop this video soon. I wasn't really paying attention just then. I'm going to stop this video soon. Another high radiation fluids. So you keep doing that as much as possible. And then you get all the materials that you need and you go to a chemistry workbench and you craft the stabilized flux. That is the idea. It seems long and seems tedious, but eventually, like, you want to make sure that you're doing it. When you're crafting the... Oh, here's more enemies. So let's kill these guys just for posterity. I want to shoot all these guys and kill them all first, because as you know, sometimes they kill the bloody bloatflies. I'm about to swear because that's... oh, no, don't kill him. Don't kill him, please. Don't kill it. Hey, where'd the other guy go? Where did the other guy go? Oh, I'm about to die. Where did the other guy go? Whatever, it's fine. All right, so let's do it again. And again with this guy. All right. Drop some for me, baby. He's up there, isn't he? The tricky bug. Look, there he is. And you swap to your other weapon. High radiation fluids. Thank you. I haven't seen glowing mass yet, I believe. Where did you drop? More high radiation fluids. Well, look, if I'm looking for high radiation fluids, I'm swimming in it, right? But maybe not so much the other ones. So another spawn. Nah, nothing from that one. But you get the general idea. I'm going to stop this video now, unless I find a crazy amount of the other materials. That was the other one. Oh god, I'm about to die again. I think I shot that one with the syringe already. Oh, but there you go. 2 glowing mass. We found every bit. Great. Point proven. Video proven. Let's get to the conclusion. Alrighty, Waysenders, that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you have any other questions when it comes to harvesting flux in the game. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.